Hello, everyone. While we're waiting for everyone to come in, this is the Jolly Bar book that I have been using for the last 5 weeks, 6 weeks, times 2, for the last 12 weeks. So this is a sew along by Fat Quarter Shop, and we are using this book to help us to make all of the blocks for the Jolly Bar 5 sampler quilt. So we have made 5 quilts so far, 5 blocks so far, and we are on block 6 today. So this link can be found in my bio or a link down below. And this again is the Jolly Bar Volume 5 book. And this is from Fat Quarter Shop. This book contains 20 patterns. And so there are 20 different patterns for quilts. All of the patterns are made up of a single block repeated over and over again. Depending on the size of the block will depend on how many you'll need in order to complete the quilt. So some you'll need a lot of blocks and others maybe 4 will complete it. Last week, the block that we made, the Scattered Stars, was big enough that we could have made 4 of those and finished the quilt. Thank you for tapping the screen. Thank you everyone for coming in. Hello and good evening. My name is Jennifer Hill and I am working on my Jolly Bar 5 sampler quilt. So again, here is the book. On the inside of the book, while I can't show you everything because this is a paid pattern book, but for the price, it really is a great deal. Here are what all 20 of the blocks look like for each of the quilts. So what I did was I went ahead and wrote down each date for when we would be working on a block. For this sew along for the Fat Quarter Shop, we are doing a block every other week. So that means there's still time to catch up. There's still time to work on a single block if that's what you prefer, or to work on one block and do the whole quilt. But we will be finished this sew along, or this quilt along as you would call it, by December. So as you can tell, there's plenty of time. So we have everything listed here, and we are here in the patterns. And so we are working on what is called the Somersaults quilt block. So this is the one that we'll be working on today. I have labeled everything with Post-its so that I know where to go in order to do each of the blocks. Every week, every other week, Fat Quarter Shop releases the directions that go along with the book. So you have to buy the book. The directions are free, but they will give you the directions for how many of each piece of fabric you would need to cut in order to make the block. Talking about the blocks, I am using this from a collection called Denim and Daisies. Denim and Daisies is made up of blues, dark to light, and it's made up of oranges and whites. So that's what you would see in the whole collection. I have picked out which prints I want to use for each of my blocks. This requires what we call, or what Fat Quarter Shop calls, a Jolly Bar. A Jolly Bar is a 10-inch by 5-inch block that is a pre-cut exclusive to Fat Quarter Shop. So much like charm packs and layer cakes and jelly rolls, they take a collection of fabrics and they make up what's called a Jolly Bar. 5 inches by 10 inches. You don't have to use the Jolly Bar. You can absolutely use your yardage or scraps. It's totally up to you. Hello, everyone, and welcome in. So I have everything pre-cut and ready to go. Makes life a lot easier when you're doing a demo of a quilt block because then you're not doing all the cutting. So I have cut everything out. Some of the cuts are all the same cut, so sometimes you can go ahead and pre-cut. These are the background fabrics, so this came in yardage. I can pre-cut that and get it all out the way. I need a pencil. Hey Gail, how are you doing, darling? Okay, so a lot of the blocks that we are working on for this sew along are made up of what we like to call half square triangles. And those are triangles that are half of our square. We make a block that is bigger than the final squared size of our half square triangles because the goal is to make 2 of these. You absolutely could cut your fabric in half, use triangles, sew them together, but what happens is when you cut the fabric on the diagonal, if you pull it, and I don't want to pull it too much, the loosest part of your fabric is along the bias or the diagonal, and so it likes to stretch when you do that. So by using this little trick for how we make 2 half square triangles at a time, you kind of control, if you will, that pull so you don't get as much waviness as you're sewing, because you're holding your fabric when you sew, and a lot of times we pull naturally even though we try not to. So that just kind of reduces that waviness. What we're going to do, because I didn't pre-do this one like I did the other ones, is we're going to go from corner to opposite corner, and we're just going to draw a line. And we're going to do that for all of the blocks. And these are for all of my bigger blocks. And again, we will be releasing the directions tomorrow for how many of these blocks you will need. But you see, in this case, I need 4 of these to make these half square triangles. And just taking my time to line it up. My mat is white and my fabric is it's like an off-white color, but it's still in the white category. So lining this up sometimes this can be just a little bit of strain on your eyes because you're trying to get it from corner to corner and this stuff is blending in with the background. Off Kilter Quilter, thank you for becoming number 20 in the fan club. Thank you for the heart made. Okay, so we have everything. It has its lines. And then we're going to take our other colored piece of fabric that matches that. And we're just going to put right sides together. I like to just double check when I am using what we like to call white on white fabric. Or it's like this is called white on white, but it could be black on black in some cases. But this is white on white fabric. And white on white means that there's a white design on white fabric. And sometimes when we have fabric like this, it looks the same on both sides. So I'm just double checking to make sure that I drew the line on the right side of the fabric, which is what they call the wrong side, or the side where the print is most faded. But just make sure that everything is lined up nice and neat. And now we're going to take it to our machine. So here in this, what we're going to do now, in order to create the half square triangles, we're going to do 2 of them. I am going to use this line as a guide, and I am going to sew a 1/4 inch on either side. That's going to give me 2 half square triangles. When you do this, it's easier to go a little scant or less than a 1/4 inch than it is to go greater. You will lose some of your square if you go wider than you will if you go a little bit narrower. So if you have to err on the side of caution, whether your 1/4 inch is actually a 1/4 inch, make it as a little bit less. And I don't mean a whole lot, just a little bit, because it's easier to trim the block down than not to have enough of the block to make what the final size should be. So we're going to take this to the machine, and let me slide that over. And I'm going to set this up for my 1/4 inch. And I'm just going to stitch all the way down one side. I'm going to take the next block because I'm just going to chain piece this, which means I'm going to do one right after the other without snipping the thread. I can go back and snip that thread in the end, but this is the quickest way to do it, and it saves the most amount of thread. And the reason why this saves the most amount of thread, it's not like it's that much, but it's a little bit more than, and it's a little easier to keep your blocks together. It's because traditionally from this point, we would pull the thread out, maybe about the hair, and then cut. And then you have a tail, and then that next tail is on the next one, and then the next one. So those little pieces that are about that wide add up. If you're like me, you're not necessarily worried about it, because I probably seam rip as much thread as I use. So, you know, it's like, okay, you're going to make up for it in one way or another. So here it is. Everything is chained together. And then we can use our scissors to snip each of those apart. I can leave this one in the machine for now. I'll cut that later. But this side is stitched. So now I have to stitch on the other side of that line that I drew. So I'll just now put that on this side and do the same thing. Again, taking my time to make sure that I stay lined up that foot at what should be the 1/4 inch mark. And go all the way down in a straight line from one end of the corner to the other. So there should be 2 seams that I have sewn. Something happened. Okay. Something got stuck in there, and it's okay, but it happens. That's why I said I waste as much thread. And that was just like a little oops. There's nothing wrong with my machine, thank goodness. Sometimes my machine likes to get a little temperamental. Sometimes it's telling me, girl, when is the last time you cleaned me? So sometimes this is what my machine's way of telling me, girl, let's get the cleaning. Okay, and we have one more to do. So I know that probably after I finish this block today, I need to get in and try to clean it just to get some of the dust out, because I have been making a lot of quilts, quilting a lot of them, and it is possible that from all that piecing, it's probably telling me that it's time for me to clean it out. Okay. So the white on white is a little hard to see, but you can see it. Here's the seam on this side, seam on that side. If I flip it over, maybe I will see a little bit better there, even though you can't see the line, but this is what I have. I have all of them done. Guess me where my rotary cutter is. Mary Dickinson, thank you so much for being number 21 in the fam club. Thank you for the heart me. And we're going to just put it on the line. Oops. Okay, time to change that rotary blade, because there is no way that I don't even see the cut on that one. Okay, there we go. So I can either cut it straight down the middle like this, or there are some people, let me go this way, just because I can see it better, who can line the line up on a line on your mat, line up all of your squares this way, and then just do one cut. And of course, this ruler isn't long enough to do it that way. Let me move it up a little bit more. So as long as the lines match up, This should work. I can use my longer ruler, but this one will work. I usually don't live dangerously like this because sometimes I'm not paying attention to what I'm doing. And I don't want to mess that up because once you cut the wrong thing, you are out of luck. Okay, so those are cut right. And then let me get this last one off of my machine. And let's cut this one. Darlene Sullivan, how are you doing? Welcome in, welcome in. And we're going to go right here. How did I not get water before I started? I don't know. But that's okay. This is an easier block to do this week, so this won't take me quite as long. Okay. So we have all of our half square triangles that are cut. Now it's time to take it to my ironing board and we're gonna press them. Okay. Just make sure I'm not crazy. Okay. Because you know I can put something together wrong. Yes, ma'am. So again, here we go. This is the Jolly Bar book for anyone who has come in a little bit later. So this book is by the Fat Quarter Shop. The link is in my bio, in my link tree. This book is only like 10 smoocheroonies. That's about 11, right? But you get 20 quilt blocks, if you will. There are 20 different quilts that you can make from that. And so that's a great deal for just this book. Usually most patterns will cost the cost of this one book. So they do tell you that you can use the Jolly Bars. The Jolly Bars are about the size of the book. So it is about 5 inches by 10 inches is a Jolly Bar. Jolly Bars are exclusive to Fat Quarter Shop. You do not have to use a Jolly Bar. Kimberly from the Fat Quarter Shop, Kimberly Jolly uses, she's using layer cakes in her cuts rather than using the Jolly Bar. So you're not married to it, but it's just a way to use the Jolly Bars and to create a quilt from them. Some of the blocks are a little easier. Some of them are a little bit more challenging in terms of the pieces, but they are just about all squares and half square triangles that you are making these blocks from. So there are about 20 different blocks. And again, here are all of the blocks here that you would be making. And each of these blocks are made over and over again to create each of the quilts that you could possibly make. So in some cases, you may need 12 blocks, in some cases 4, and in some more than that to finish the block. So it's the same block over and over again. To experience those blocks, we are doing the sampler. We are making 10 of these blocks. And the pattern or the directions for the sampler is free. You can find those on the website, and I am also placing those in each of the videos that I am doing, so you can capture them that way as well. So we are working on the block today, which is, and I always have to see where I am. It's called Somersaults. And that is the one that we are working on. Is my finger in the right place? No, it's not. It's on Timberland. So Somersaults is right here, and that's the block that we're working on. So 4 colors. To make this, we're doing the half square triangles. Okay. Let me move that book out of my way. My iron should be good and hot. So for these, the easiest thing to do, I like to do them in bulk just to pop a little heat on them, especially on the seam itself. What old school quilters like to say is that's how you flatten the threads, even though I think they're flattened before they go in there. But maybe when they go through the machine, they pop up again because of the tension and they become round, but I don't know. But you flatten them out and then you open it up, and it just makes it a little bit easier to iron that seam open and flat. Now, it is up to you, and I say this during every live. You can either press your seams to one side, in this case to the darkest side, or you can open those seams up. when you're working with half square triangles, sometimes people prefer to open their seams up instead of pressing to one side, because you're going to have so many points that are going to gather in the same space, and sometimes it can get very bumpy or very heavy in those corners because you have a whole bunch of seams meeting up at the same place. That's totally up to you. The one thing that I do suggest is that if you do that, try to be as consistent as possible. So that means that I don't want to do some of these and open them up or press them to the dark side, and then some of them leave, press them open. Pick a team and then stick with the team. Sometimes in quilting, we press to the dark side because your lighter fabric, you'll be able to see through it and see the seam. Sometimes you can avoid that, and sometimes you can't avoid it, because depending on how you piece those little itty bitty blocks together, what's going to end up happening is it's still going to go, you're still going to have a seam on the white side. So when that happens, you're going to see through it. So I just want to make sure that it's consistent. So if I'm going to peekaboo on some of the seams, I'm going to make sure that you peekaboo on all of them, or you peekaboo possibly on none of them, or on particular ones. But again, that's up to you. So we're just going through right now with the 8 blocks that we've created from the 4 blocks. We get 2 half square triangles from each of these blocks. And we're just taking the time to press them open. Typically, when you are working with half square, when you're working with pre-cuts, there are some people who prefer to pre-wash their fabrics. Typically with pre-cuts, you're not going to pre-wash them because they're already cut, and you're going to lose some of the inches of it when you wash it, because it'll fray in the washing machine. So a lot of people will not pre-wash pre-cuts. It's a rare occasion that you might see somebody do that. So then what we may do is steam press it a lot and then starch it so that we get the best version of it and the least amount of shrinkage. So that's one suggestion that you could use if you are trying to at least shrink your fabric enough so it doesn't shrink in the process of doing everything you're doing, because you're going to hit it with the iron a lot. There are other people who will use a iron with no steam, so then that way you have the least amount of moisture hitting your block. Okay, for this half square triangle, we're going to use that seam. And we're going to use this ruler. It could be a ruler or it could be a square, but I want something with a diagonal in it, line in it, if I can help it. That 45-degree line is what I'm going to use to line up the seam. And I am going to measure the block so that it meets the measurements of the pattern. And then I'm going to cut the excess off. So I am squaring up the quilt block, or this piece of the quilt block, so that it meets the measurements that are in the pattern. And depending on if you do this yourself, knowing you, or if you do this according to the pattern, you really shouldn't have a lot of waste. So here's one that's squared up. You see how much fabric is there. And then here is the square, that half square triangle. So I shouldn't have a lot left over. You don't want to waste a lot of fabric because fabric is expensive. But if you feel like you're going to make a mistake, there are people who will make this a little bit bigger. So for example, if we started off with 2 6-inch blocks in the pattern and they say by the time you square it up, it should be a certain measurement. Sometimes people will go to 6 1/4. So then it'll result in a bigger half square triangle, and then they trim it down because they want to guarantee that their half square triangles are what they're supposed to be when they go to create these blocks. Accuracy in some cases is important because the more accurate the quilt block, the better your results are when you're putting everything together. So even in the lives, I really make sure that I have lined everything up, even though I really want to just zippity zip, zip, zip through it. And that is just because it's going to make a difference in the final result. And to be honest, I don't like to have things off. That's just general. But the other side of it is that I don't want it to be wonky when I'm showing, people how to do things, and then my stuff comes out awful. Now, I'm not going to say that everything doesn't line up from time to time, because stuff happens. What I don't want is for it to be so off that I'm not happy with the results, and somebody else is looking at it like, wow, that's really bad. So those types of things I don't want. So I'm going to finish these other 8 blocks. And I'm just going through and doing the same thing. Taking my square. And again, you can, well, can't say again, because again assumes that I said it the first time. So with the square, you can decide how big or how small you want the squares. The more that you practice quilting, the more squares that you will end up having in your collection. So I have a ton of rulers and I have a ton of squares. Some of them are the same size. Some of them are slightly different. Because, of course, in the moment I said that's what I need to finish that project. So I have a square right here, and this is 5 inches. So this works great for making charm packs. I have bigger ones, but here's the next size up. And I have this. I can still use this. Let me move that out the way. For this one as well. So I'm not married to that little one. It just depends on what you want to use when you're doing this, but I absolutely can use the bigger one. And I actually have a little bit better of a grip on it than I did with that smaller one, but that's also because I put medical tape on the back of this, and it helps to control the slip. There's no medical tape on the back of this. It's supposed to have grip, but it doesn't grip as well as I would like it to. Hello, 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 everybody, and welcome in. Let me size this one up. I am working on the 6th block for the Jolly Bar 5 sampler, sponsored by the Fat Quarter Shop. So we are making a block every 2 weeks. In my posts, I usually let everybody know what's coming next by doing a post that shows that I am ready for the next week to make the quilt. So usually you'll see the book, you'll see the fabric, the name of the block, and I have everything pre-cut. And then I set it aside for the week because I have such great restraint in terms of not doing something 2 seconds after I post it. And then I come on every other week on live to show how to put the block together. After I show how to put the block together, I take the raw video and I will upload it in its entirety to YouTube. And I do that so that if anybody wants to see the replay of it, you can see it if you're trying to make the block and you're stuck on a part, or if you're, just need a little bit more guidance as you're making it and you want to come back to this just to replay what was here. It also helps for people who haven't done the other blocks yet. If you wanted to go into the YouTube, you could see those blocks that I've already made. I am QAL Designs, and of course that link is also in my bio. Thank you, Mac Daddy, for being the 22nd person in the fan club. Thank you for the heart me. And we are going to line this up just so ever wonderfully. We have 2 more to go. And I'm just squaring up these half square triangles. I'm cleaning them up to be the final size for what I need these to be. And again, I should not be trimming a whole lot off, because whoever created the directions for this, they said, you know, we're not going to have a lot of fabric left over. And that's a great thing, because again, fabric is not cheap. And so what we don't want to do is waste a whole lot of fabric. And you can see, except for this last one, this is the scrap. That's it. So there's not a lot of scrap. Kalana, welcome in, and thank you for joining me as being new to quilting. Hopefully you can find a lot of tips and tricks on my page, so hopefully you are following me. My name is Jennifer Hell. I have been quilting for about 20 years. I won't say that I'm like this great expert, but I do try to give some great tips and tricks in quilting, some inspiration in terms of quilts that you could make that could be beginner friendly. Some are a little bit more sophisticated, but nothing is ever really difficult. I am trying very hard to finish a lot of the quilts that I have started. So I do a lot of videos to show that quilt making process from beginning to end. I don't show a lot of the quilting itself once the top is pieced, just because we would be here till Christmas watching me quilt it. But I do talk about my journey in using my long arm as well, because I just purchased that last year. So I'm working on year 2 for that. So here is all of the little pieces that I have left after all 8 blocks, half square triangles. So this is it. I should not have a lot. If I have a lot, something's wrong. And again, we don't hopefully want the person who's created the pattern to have us wasting a whole lot of fabric. Okay. So we're going to bring in our other pieces here, because we're going to need these. And everything is going to stay in the same color. So that means we're going to use all the flowers that are blue. We're going to use all of the oranges. We're going to put everything in order. And again, remember, this is, and let me see if I can show it to you. This is a white on white. And so I don't know if you can see that really well, but there are little dots. So that's the pattern. And so they're little white dots, or off-white dots, little off-white dots on the off-white fabric. So I need to make sure that when I'm looking at it, I'm seeing the bolder side, so I know which is the pretty side of the fabric and which is what we like to call the wrong side, the back side of the fabric. And I want to make sure that that is in the proper place. So what I like to do is to lay everything out the way that it is supposed to go. And then I stack everything. So that's what the block is going to look like, the piece of the block. And so then I can take the next piece and just layer it. All my white blocks I want faced up, so I am going to make sure that they're in the right direction. Hi, Darlene. How are you? Welcome in. And this is a relatively easy one, so we are not going to be here for a long time. Okay, make sure I have the right sides up. And I can actually put this last one down too. And then let's just stack these other ones. Because I'm going to chain these as well. And it just makes sense to go ahead and line them up so that they're already done. So I don't have to think about this for each individual block. Okay. So everything is laid out the way that it needs to go. I'm going to double check my pattern to make sure that it is the way that it's supposed to be. Because once I sew them together, I don't want to seam rip. So I'm going to look at this, look at my pattern. Hey, Monica, how are you doing? Make sure everything is set and ready to go. And if everything is set and ready to go, now we're going to put this together. Let me separate these out just a little bit. There are 1, 2, 3, 4 patches or 4 pieces now that I'm working with. 2 are half square triangles. 2 are squares. They're all the same measurement because I squared these up. I trimmed them up so that they equal these. I'm going to put these together and I'm going to sew them in rows, if you will, but I'm going to work with the columns and I'm just going to flip one column over to the other column, stitch each color together. So I'm going to start here and then here. Then do the next color, then the next color, the next color, and then true. And then I'll go back and then I'm going to flip it and then stitch the whole unit together. So I have 4 units that I'm working on. I'm starting with these black or green, these blue and white polka dots. And I'm just going to flip the half square triangles over onto the solids. Hey, Jennifer, how are you? Hey, Alice, how's it going? Welcome in, welcome in. We are working on the 6th block for the fat quarter. Let me get the block right. The Jolly Bar 5 quilt sampler sponsored by the Fat Quarter Shop. And if everything's lined up like it should be, I'm going to pick it up, making sure that I pick it up the same way that I laid it down. We don't want to change the order. I'm going to take it to my machine and do a 1/4 inch. Remember, we're using the polka dots first to keep everything in order. I'm just going to do the second polka dot. So I started up here and then I'm going to come down here. Just make sure everything is lined up. It should be because we squared it up. Keyword is should because we're human. Then we'll start with the next one. So now we have the medium orange flowers. We're just going to take those half square triangles, flip them over onto the squares. Make sure you're only picking up one. Ask me how I know, but we know that we're doing it here because we'll see the colors. It's the whites that are tricky. Just make sure you're only pulling up one at a time. Everything is lined up the way that it should be. Take it to your machine and stitch. Yes, Alice, that's what I'm talking about. Loving that Fat Quarter Shop. Absolutely. That Quarter Shop, they do have a wide variety of fabrics that you can, and again, the link is in my bio, but you can get a wide variety of yardage, but they also sell a ton of pre-cuts. And the great thing is that they also have a ton of free patterns. So you can get a lot of free patterns. You can buy their fabrics, use your scraps, however you prefer, but they are available onto the site. Now we're going to flip over these, again, half square triangles onto the squares. Pick up, make sure everything is lined up nice and neatly, and then stitch our 1/4 inch. And again, I'm chain stitching. So I am not cutting the thread at all. I'm just running one in right after the other. Awesome. How do you like their subscription boxes? Here to here, and then right under. One thing that I do like, and I won't talk about just because I am talking about the Fat Quarter Shop, but one of the things that I do like about some companies, when you buy a pattern, because not everybody wants to buy patterns, free is for them. If you like it, I love it. But if I can buy a book with a bunch of patterns in there, then I have choices. And the great thing is that usually the cost of the book makes the patterns cheaper than if I would have bought them individually. So sometimes I will thumb through the book if I can before I purchase it, because it gives me the opportunity to see what the quilts or the quilt blocks are before I purchase them. If not, if I just take a shot in the dark, having so many choices means that at least something I can, hopefully pick from to make whatever I'm going to work on next. And here's our last one. Again, we're just going to flip it and then stitch. How are you doing in that? So eventually this will be a quilt. Right now, this is the Jolly Bar Book 5 Sampler Sew Along. And so what this is a way to promote the Jolly Bar pattern book, sponsored by the Fat Quarter Shop. And this has over 20 quilts in it. Each of the quilts is made up each quilt is made up of one block that they use over and over and over again. So if you look at the table of contents here, you will see each of the blocks that you could make into a quilt, or you could make it into a table runner, or anything else that you would like. We are using 10 of the blocks from this book. There are 20 altogether. So when we finish, we will have a sampler. Samplers always have a variety of different blocks in the quilt. It gives us a chance to practice skills. It gives us a chance to work with different blocks to see what we like. And then, we could go back and say, hey, I want to make a whole quilt out of the, let's say, the hatchling block. And so you can make that decision if you want. But I love this because I get to see what 10 of the blocks are going to come out to look like. So I have written in pencil when we are working on each of those blocks. So as you can see, we are already at today, which is the Somersault quilt block. And so that's the one that I am working on right here. And then we still have these 4 more to go. And then we'll be putting the whole quilt together. So the quilts won't go together until about December. So it's going to be a while. We're only working on one block every 2 weeks until we finish. So you have plenty of time if you want to get the book and join in with the sew along to make this sampler quilt. All of the directions for it. It's really pretty. I like how it's coming out. All of the directions for making the sampler quilt are free on the website. So you do have to purchase the book in order to get all of the blocks for this sampler quilt, but putting it together is completely free. I do show each of them on my site, but you can use the link and go right into the Fat Quarter site, Fat Quarter Shop website, and look up Jolly Bar Book 5 to get all of those blocks. And again, the link is in my bio, so it just makes it a little bit easier for you to get there and, and get the book if you would like to purchase the book. And this is the last block that I need to do. So the book itself, I want to say was either $10.95 or $11.95, somewhere around there, for 20 patterns. Excellent price. Excellent price for that. Okay. So here are all of those blocks, and you can see I have them all chained together. in order to do my next step, what I like to do is keep the segments together. So I'm going to cut every two. So I'm going to leave my dots together, my orange, medium orange flowers together, what would look like a darker orange with flowers. And then just because it's going to make my life easier, then we have this one. So absolutely, that's what I said. It's a, for 20 quilts, that's a great price. And again, it features the Jolly Bar. So a Jolly Bar is half of a layer cake. So it is 5 inches by 10 inches. So that is a Jolly Bar. It is Jolly Bar. The pre-cut is exclusive to the Fat Quarter Shop. You do not have to use a Jolly Bar. So you can absolutely use your scraps. You could use your yardage, what you already have. Kimberly Jolly, she's using layer cakes in her videos. And like, this is from her Fat Quarter Shop, right? So she decided she wanted to use layer cakes because she wanted some freedom in how she cut. So you are not married to getting the Jolly Bars, but there are some really cute ones. And I am using Denim and Daisies because my favorite colors are blue and orange. Okay, so let's open this up. And what I want to do at this point when I open this up is to make sure that everything looks the way it's supposed to look. If it looks the way it is supposed to look, then that means that everything should be going in the same direction for each block. And it should look like the final segment of those blocks from the book. So I'm just double checking, because if I have to rip it apart and start over again because I wasn't paying attention, I'd rather catch it early than to catch it late. So taking little steps like this, even though you can still mess up, ask me how I know, is a great way for you to see if you've done this right. And of course, I'll just open my book. It has the measurements in it. That's the only reason why I'm not showing the inside of the book. And I just make sure that everything is in the place that it's supposed to be in. And if that's fine, it's now time to go on to the next one. Yes, ma'am, I love the orange. I'm telling you, like, I could easily say that the blue is what drew me, right? But it's the blue with the orange that drew me for this. This is called Denim and Daisies, but I love that orange. Like I said, orange is my jam. This is a red shirt, you know, but it does kind of show up orange on here. But I love orange. Okay, I'm not going to iron this because I'm going to be lazy. So you could take these and iron them. But I'm going to show you what I like to do is to, because I'm only going to work with one seam, I will just kind of finger press this, and then I will take the whole thing to the iron at the end. So remember when we did this, we took this section, flipped it over. This section, flipped it over. Now what we're going to do is take this section, this whole row, and we're going to flip it over to that row. That's why I went ahead and cut every other block and let those sections stay together, because I can pick them up as a unit in the right order, because even if I drop them on the floor, they're still connected with that chain of thread, and I can line everything up by the seam. I again press my seams to one side so I can finger press. And you can see I'm just like moving my thumb and my pointer finger to get that right where I want it. And I like to clip it just to hold it in place. And then I line up the other edge. And then I'll take it to the machine and I will stitch it. If I finger press them, then what happens is your seams will butt up against each other, and they do what we like to call nesting the seams, which will help us to get, hopefully, perfect center for the quilt. That's what we're hoping for. So again, lay it on top. Take those two seams, line them up. And again, this is where you take your time. There's no rush. We're going to make sure that we nest them together. My seams are pressed to one side. You can press them open if you like, but then, you know, you would have had to press them. Actually, I wouldn't have done that, but you can do that. Hey, Shamir. Living under a bridge, how are you? And we're going to go right here. And the great thing about this is, and again, I said it was earlier, this is a 4-patch. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4 blocks. We sewed 2 of them together. We're sewing these 4 together. Once we sew these 4 units together, we'll make the final unit for the block, and that will be a 4-patch as well. So I am a fan of working in 4 patches, because I think that it really does help to move it along faster, keep it together in units. I try not to sew in rows, because I just think that sometimes with rows, you pull a lot more with your fabric, and you sometimes will get a little bit more of a wave. And so working in blocks, for me, helps to eliminate that wave. Okay, and we have the last one. Again, making sure those seams are together. I am doing wonderful. That is awesome that everyone is doing well. And again, this block, I think the next couple blocks are not that difficult to do. There's one that's coming up. I think I have to make like 3 of that one, or 4. Can't be 3, it has to be 4. It's 4 of that block. But most of the blocks are only 1 each that you need to make. So when I do the 4, I will come on live to at least do 1. Depends on how long it takes to do the block. And then I do the other ones offline. And let me see. Yeah, it's actually, no, it's the variations block. There's 4 of them. So I did mark in, and when you get the, what is it called? The first one. When you get the layout of it for the sampler, you'll see it. But for variations, I put in parentheses 4 because I need to make 4 of these. So each one will be a solid color, and there will be 4 of those. So I'll have 4 different fabrics that will all have these colors in them. And then I will make that variations. But what I do like about this one, you know, it's a small enough block to do. I should be able to get that one, but everyone else, they're just like 1 block. I think there was another one that I did 4 of. Oh, the Holly Berry block. I did 4 of these. But again, like you can see how they're, you know, which one is which, but it's just about 1 block each, except for the 2 of those. Okay. So again, here we go. We now have each of our units. Let's warm up that iron. And we're just going to snip these apart. And then now we can take it to our iron for me. And you can see here, oops. Oh, gotta get up and take care of the puzzle piece. Oh, good job, Jennifer, on the first try. you could see here how the half square triangle has a seam that meets here. You have this seam meeting here. You have this seam meeting here. So that means that there's a lot of bulk right in here. And that's what, I was saying, like some people prefer to open up seams to reduce the bulk. But again, that's up to you. I will iron and spray starch the heck out of a block. And usually I can get as much of that lump and bump out. So Arlene, I don't have a true recommendation on a machine. I believe that there are a lot of good brands out there. And I also believe that you get what your pocket can afford. I recommend, I'm a big fan of quilt shows. I'm a big fan of going to quilt stores that sell machines and getting into that quilt store if you can and playing around with the machine until you find something that fits best for you. There are people who will swear by a Bernina. There are people who will say, it's Janome for them. Some people love their singers. I am using a Husqvarna Viking, and I have no problem with my Vikings. And if you have an older machine, I would take that thing right into a sewing repair shop and number one, see if they can kind of help you, troubleshoot through that machine, because some of those older machines are better than some of these new ones. It's like cars. They were made better. Also try going online because a lot of the manuals are online. But a good sewing machine shop, they should be able to help you, get through it. Some of them have classes where they will show you how to use your machine. And so you might take like a couple classes, get used to the machine, tips and tricks for the machine, and then, be off on your own to explore it from there. And Husqvarna, Viking, Janome, they're all the same. They're all under the same roof. So I do have a Janome. I won a Janome last year as part of a shop hop. I don't use it as often, but it is my travel machine. So if I am going somewhere and I need a machine, it's what I use when I travel. And where is it right now? It's in the car. And again, super heavy. It's probably good quality. So there are people on here like Julian Creates. He absolutely loves vintage machines. And like I said, I remember we had a Kenmore, and I love that little machine till it just completely couldn't be loved anymore. And I love that little machine typically I do not use steam, but it has steam already in the machine from when I was doing something earlier. So I am using steam right now. Thank you, thank you, thank you. The fan club has been completed. Thank you, everyone. And again, thank you for those of you that have given your daily heart me. And thank you for those of you who are tapping on the screen. We are at 1.7. Okay. So I'm just pressing my seams down the way that they would want to go so I can get everything nice and flat. And again, you don't have to use steam. I typically don't use it. Hey, Anna J. Okay. And here we have those blocks. So again, as we are working on the last part of this, we are working in the book, the Jolly Bar book. It is exclusive to Flat Quarter Shop. This is where you can get it. They are promoting their Jolly Bars. Jolly Bars are exclusive to Flat Quarter Shop. They're the only shop where you can get them. Unless somebody sells Fat Quarter Shop Jolly Bars somewhere. They are 5 inches by 10 inches pre-cuts, usually showing off a collection of fabric. We are working on 10 of the blocks for the sampler. And we are here at the Somerset quilt. So this is the block that we are making, which is this one right here where my pointer finger is. So of course I have to look at the block to make sure I'm putting it in the right direction. And the great thing about this is that I'm looking for a focal point for this, and that is the square. So I'm making sure that the square is in every corner. And because I made sure that the square was in every corner, it guaranteed that this did what it was supposed to do. I'm going to just double check it, because Northern Lights looks like this. So my eye went up to Northern Lights, but I'm just checking it to make sure that everything is in its right place. I do like the oranges offsetting each other, but if you wanted the blues next to each other, oranges next to each other, knock yourself out. If you wanted this to all be blue, all be orange, it's totally up to you. So you can decide the colors. I do like their layout where they have 4 different colors. That's what I stuck with. But here again, you have 4 blocks, a 4 patch. So we're going to follow that same methods for the 4 patch. And we're going to take this and flip this over, and this and flip this over. If there is some need to square these up, I can use my square, get in there and square them up, because they're going to tell me how much each of these should be. So they're going to let me know that what the measurement is, and I can check the blocks to see if they measure what they're supposed to measure. And if they are off, I can trim them up, but I need to make sure that I line up all of my lines, and then I can cut off the excess. Sometimes it's so little that you really can't even see it. What again I like about this block is that, or this ruler that I have, is that this has medical tape on it. Now I do have a turn. I do have a cutting board that is on like a lazy Susan that helps me turn it. So why too much like right to use that? So I'm just going through these and I am trimming these blocks up. What this does is it allows me to ensure that the blocks are all the same size. Sometimes our hands slip when we're sewing, and sometimes we can make that block just a wee bit bigger than what it's supposed to be. And then you have to stretch the block to fit another block. But the great thing about this medical tape on this ruler is that I can spin this and you can see that block is not moving. And again, it's not much. You see just about that block was on point. So I'm not wasting a whole lot. It's just a little wee bit off. And some of that may have come from me pressing it with the steam, or it just may have come from not having a steady hand. So it could have been any number of reasons why I have just that little bit, but I'm okay because it's a little bit. But be careful and make sure that everything is lined up, because you don't want to make the block shorter. And that's one of the reasons why I like having a ton of rulers, because if they say that your final block needs to be 12.5 inches, you can use a ruler that's 12.5 inches, and you know that that block is going to be what that block's supposed to be. And I'd rather use a 12.5 inch block than use a 14, because then I have to do some measuring and I have to do some eyeballing, and I don't have to do that if I have the exact square for the block. But measuring tools are expensive. So sometimes you don't want to spend that kind of money. So then you get what, makes sense to you. Hi, Annette. How are you? Okay. Oops, that slid a little bit. So we'll just get it right back on track. And again, you shouldn't be pulling too much off. I think I got that. Okay. Cool beans. So again, all 4 of those blocks, and that's all I have. So it's just like shaving some off, but it's not much. Okay, so again, we just have to remember the order in which we put this in, because it would be too much like right. And I can follow the pattern because the squares themselves are in each of the corners. So if all the squares are in the corner, it should form this little pinwheel here in the center. And if everything's going the right direction, I'm good. Now remember, now we're going to do the 4 patch. And we're going to flip over, stitch down here, go back, and then flip them down. This time I have a middle seam. So I'm going to line up those seams again. I'm going to nest those seams, finger press with my finger just to kind of nudge them to make sure that they line up. And then take this to my machine and stitch a 1/4 inch. One of the things that I do like about my machine, I invested in a 1/4 inch foot. So then that way I don't have to eyeball that 1/4 inch. When I'm at my machine, I don't have to mark it on the plate and then the tape comes up from time to time. I can just use that little guard, and as long as I'm paying attention, that guard is going to keep my fabric to the left of it at a 1/4 inch. So if there's not an investment that I say that you need to get if you're quilting, oh, it's a 1/4 inch foot. Because in most quilts, just about all of them, what is the measurement? It's going to be a 1/4 inch. So if you're doing a lot of quilting, you're going to wear out that 1/4 inch foot. Okay. So it is a 1/4 inch foot. Like there are other tools you could buy, Real Wrap, but I like this. So, and it depends on your machine what it'll look like. I can show it to you in a second. And I'll show you the guard. Because it's on the foot. It's on the foot itself. So if you buy a 1/4 inch foot, most 1/4 inch feet. Let me come back and say that. If you're buying a quilting foot, and it's a 1/4 inch foot. This is the foot here. Let me get my fingers situated right. So this is the foot. And on this side, let me turn it the right way. There is this little metal guard here. And what this does is when the fabric feeds through, the fabric is feeding to the left of this, and that fabric just runs right up against that guard. Now the reality is that you can, if you're not paying attention, you can push the fabric under the guard, but it's just there to help remind you, hey, don't go past me, so that you can do an exact 1/4 inch. Let me see, because that screen. So there, that's the foot. Just kind of seeing it from different angles, and you can see that little guard looks like a little blade, but that's that little guard that's on there. So mine is plastic, and it has that little metal guard. There are some feet, depending on your machine, that may be all metal and will have that little metal guard there. There are machines that also have, without the guard, will have like the rest of this plastic piece. And then right here is where you measure to the 1/4 inch. So it just depends, but I like having this little guard here because it's like my little cheat. I'm not sure what you mean by down into the machine. Did I miss a part of it? Okay, let me go back. Okay. That's amazing. I have trouble with the 1/4 inch seam allowance and the fabric getting pushed down into the machine. So it happens from time to time where when I'm going under the needle, sometimes the needle will push that fabric underneath of there. One thing that people, and of course, like for once in my life, I cleaned up. Let me use a piece of this. I use what's called like a lead. So I will take a piece of scrap fabric and I will run that under my machine. Just far enough back so that the thread is with it. I find that when I have that lead there, it's automatically pulling my thread to the back. So it helps to push the fabric to the back. And that helps from it kind of making the needle kind of trying to want to push my beginning part of my block down into that little opening where the needle goes through. So it does that from time to time, but that's one of the ways that I avoid it. But usually if I just take my time in the beginning and I start slow, it will naturally, the feed dolls will naturally push it back, and then I can speed up sewing from there. But if I start rather quickly in the beginning, 9 times out of 10, it's going right down into that little hole. Okay. So remember we said like a 4 patch. We're going to open this back up, do a check. I see my pinwheel, I'm good. Remember, I didn't cut that little piece of thread. It's not that big of a deal, but you know, it helps. I'm gonna line up my seams. Now there's a lot of bulk that's coming in here because I have these two that are meeting up here plus this. On this side, I have these 2 seams that are meeting here plus this. So I will tell you on this one, it's to my benefit to open the seam up. I can either press this with my sewing machine, with my iron now, or I can just kind of finger press it. And so I'm just gonna opt for the finger press, but I'm just gonna open up both of those seams just to kind of reduce the bulk to either side of this final seam. And that will help to reduce some of that bulk in the center. There's going to be some bulk, but it's not going to be all to one side. It'll be evenly distributed. So I'm going to take my time with that, make sure that I line everything up, and then I'm going to clip it. I'm going to line up those other 2 and clip it. And again, if everything has been squared up the way it's supposed to be, everything should line up. And if it's a little off, you should be able to fudge it into place. And that's the importance of making sure you square up everything so that it's all the size it's supposed to be, because then pieces will lock in together like they're supposed to, and you won't have a whole bunch of problems trying to get that to do what it's supposed to do at the end. Okay, so again, I'm gonna take my time. I did do a little bit of a back stitch. Sometimes there's just a tendency to go fast, and it just makes sense to slow down. Make sure everything is lined up there. It looks like it's a little off. I want to make sure that my seams don't push back on me. So I'm going to take my time going over that hump. There's a lot more of a hump bump to go through. Take your time. There, like I said, there's no rush. And I don't, you know, I'm going through this and I'm not rushing. Number one, because I'm talking. But number two, because it guarantees that there's a better percentage of the chance that I will have everything lined up the way that it's supposed to be, rather than trying to race. Okay. So that was open. This went to this side. So I'll have to press that back down. That kind of wanted to open up on me. Let me cut that little piece off. And again, thank you for joining in. Thank you for 1.8K likes. Okay. Everything is lined up in the center. You kind of see like it's a little bit of a hump. Like I said, you've got all these seams coming together, 4 different seams, and then these 4. So there's 8 seams all humping together. So there's a lot of weight here. But it'll be okay. We're going to press everything out. And like I said, I'm going to press the heck out of it. And then when some people will take like a little mallet, they'll open that up a little bit. But usually, like I said, I don't have too much of a problem in that area. And then after we press everything, this block will be done. So the blocks aren't meant to take long. They are relatively easy blocks. And I just say that because it's relative to the person who's doing it. They're not hard blocks to do. And again, if you see the block itself and you say, wow, I like that, you could absolutely pivot and decide to make a whole quilt, because you will have the directions and everything you need from the Jolly Bar Volume 5 book to make the entire quilt. And so this is where I am just kind of pressing those open seams, because remember, I opened those center seams up just to reduce some of the bulk, or evenly distribute it, because you're not really reducing it, you're not getting rid of it, but I'm evenly distributing it on either side of the seams. And I opened them up going in both directions. So I'm just pressing those open to hopefully get that to lay a little bit flatter. So, and again, we're almost coming to the end, but thank you everyone who sent your daily heart me. Thank you for those of you that commented, tap the screen. We know that for TikTok, all of that stuff is important in terms of engagement, not for just the person that is going on live, but individually in terms of your engagement. That's the new thing with TikTok. And we'll come down here and hit this last one. Get that open. Thank you for, again, tapping the screen. We are almost at 2K. Again, this will be up on the tube. Now I've been lying and saying that it's gonna go up there the next day, and then I come home and pass out. But the goal is to have it posted by Wednesday, up on the page. And then let me see, that little hump is there. So sometimes to help myself flatten it out, I do a couple little squirts of my starch. And then I'm just going to press those seams this way just to make sure that they are as flat as they possibly can. Okay. So I do post the final block here. So I will post that. The video won't fit here, so I do move the videos over to YouTube because they will be there for folks to go back if they want to see the blocks. Any block that I have made so far will all be on YouTube. And again, just kind of, I'm focusing in on that center just to get it to lay as flat as I possibly can. Okay, I'm gonna move this here, move my machine out the way. Oh, I was about to say, did I do that wrong? Okay, and so here is the final block. So this again, you can kind of see the weight height here a little bit, but this is where all those seams are coming together. So I did lay it as flat as I can. There are some people who will just kind of play with that just to massage it down to get it as flat as you can go. But like I said, the bulk is just here. So that's where the, all these are just crossing. All 8, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 seams are all coming together in this point. I only have 4 seams coming together here. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 here. So there's some bulk even here. So, the bulk is existing in some of these places. I could have opened these up just to give myself a little bit less stress on that side. I could still go ahead and do it. But that's up to, me as to whether or if you want to do that. But this is the final block. And again, this is Somersault. So right here, this is the Somersault block. And so this is the one that we worked on today. And so we are now finished this one. In 2 weeks, we will be working on Timberland. So the Timberland block is the next one that we will work on. And again, as you can see, most of these blocks are nothing more than half square triangles and squares. So we will be working on this one. This one will be 4 all in 1 week. And then this is the next one that we'll be working on, these 2. So they're like all in order. We have 4 more to go. It's every 2 weeks. So next week we will be off. We don't necessarily have to do a Fat Quarter Shop Live, but I will post that I have cut this out. So I will do that post for next Tuesday as part of Fat Tuesday for me. I post anything Fat Quarter Shop on Tuesdays. So this will be there. Thank you for the follow. Again, this book is the Jolly Bar Volume 5. That means there's 4 more before this one. And again, as we said, there are 20 quilt patterns. So the blocks themselves will make up a pattern. So vision that I have so many blocks. This is about 15 inches, 16 16 and a half. So it's a 16.5-inch block. So I may need at least 4 or so 16 of these to make a full quilt. So if you wanted to make all of the quilt out of all of these blocks, then you would get your yardage, your Jolly Bars, whatever you would need, make 16 of these and make a quilt out of just the Somersault blocks. And so it works the same way for all the other ones, but the blocks are different sizes. So depending on the size will depend, and depending on the size quilt you want to make, would depend on how many blocks you would need to make. So this book gives you those, and I don't know if I have one that makes sense. So is this the Somersault? Let me see if I can find the Somersault and not show the directions, because I do at least want to honor the person who created the quilt. Okay, so here is the Somersault quilt, if you will. So they have you make 9 blocks. So it's 9 of these, and they put sashing in between it. So this is how they went through the layout for doing that. So you could make 9 of these blocks using, let's say, the Denim and Daisies collection. There are so many different prints in the Denim and Daisy line, and you can use all of those, or you could use scraps to make a quilt that looks like this. Every quilt does not look the same, so some of them have sashing, some of them don't, but this is what you could absolutely use to make a quilt for the book. So they just use 1 block, repeat it over and over and over again to create the quilt. And let me see, we can cutting instructions. So you can see it like even here, like this is a block later on down the road, the XOXO quilt. And there are, again, there's 9 of them. It's hard to see if it's sashing in there or not. I can't tell. But that would be the final quilt. So you would make the same blocks over and over and over again. What we're doing is just making 1 of each of the blocks, because we're going to take all those blocks, put them together, and we're going to create a sampler quilt. And a sampler quilt means we sampled all of the blocks. So that's what we're doing. So we're only making 1. The directions for this will be posted tomorrow in terms of what you need to do the one. So they'll tell you how many squares of the Denim and Daisies, for example, that you need to cut out, the sizes for them, and then how many of the background fabric that you need and the sizes as well. So they give you what you need to cut out, and they call it A or B. So the whole idea is to buy the book to get the actual size of each block and finish sizes. So you would buy the book to get it. And again, for under 12, little buckaroos, that's not a bad deal to get 20 different blocks and or 20 different quilt layouts that you could use to create your quilt. So I absolutely love that. And if you're interested in getting that, you absolutely can. Thank you, thank you, thank you, everyone. Thank you for the compliments. Again, thank you for the daily heart means. Thank you for the for participating. Thank you. I try as much as possible. Hey, Joshi, how are you? I try as much as possible to make sure that I make everything clear for everyone. Again, please make sure you're following me on YouTube at GL Designs. That link is in my bio as well. You will find the replays of the patterns. I have them there. That's why I don't play music in the background, so that I can have them. But stay tuned. We'll be back in 2 weeks to make the next block. Of course, I have other projects that I need to work on, so I'll be live showing those projects as well. But until then, have a great evening. In the meantime, somebody went Walmart shopping, so she needs to go upstairs and figure out if this stuff is fitting the way that it needs to fit and how we're going to put this together and present this for tomorrow. So thank you again. Thank you for getting me to 2.6K. Thank you for your daily heart me's or any other gifts that you gave that I may have missed. And I will catch you for the next thing, because again, I have plenty of stuff to work on. Have a good evening.